Once again, welcome this evening. On September 11, 2001, I was approaching the end of my first year working in JMU. Like everyone else, I got up and went to work expecting a normal day. There was no reason to expect anything else. I was sitting in my office when I heard the news of the attacks. I immediately left, went to go to a floor in my building that had a couple of TVs. Ironically, the floor was called the Airport Lounge. As a man who was born in Brooklyn, what I saw that day took my breath away. There must have been more than 100 students watching the events unfold. I remember seeing the faces in shock, the tears, the utter astonishment at what was unfolding before them. The words, nothing more than surreal. Pastor Fred told you how many perished that day. It was 2,752 in the towers, 184 in Flight 77 that crashed into the Pentagon, 40 in Flight 93 that went down in Pennsylvania. Since that day, 6,207 members of our armed forces have lost their lives fighting the global war on terrorism, and many more have passed away with 9/11 related illnesses. In total, it's approximately 10,000 people. Tonight, our purpose is to remember those who lost their life as a result of this tragedy. But we are also here to acknowledge the dedication and courage of our armed forces who've given up so much to protect our very freedoms. To those individuals, we would simply like to say thank you. We are privileged tonight to have Mr. Jim Cook here as our guest speaker. I call Mr. Cook. He's a retired police officer who currently serves as a chaplain for the Harrisonburg Police Department. He has an interesting story to tell you about his involvement in the aftermath of 9/11. When I called him to ask, how would you like for me to introduce you, Mr. Cook? He very kindly said, just say, here's Jim Cook. He's an old guy who's got an interesting story to tell. So without further ado, I give you an old guy with an interesting story to tell, Mr. Jim Cook.
To be here tonight. Special thanks to my friend Rick Cassie for calling me and asking me to come and read a letter that I had written when I came back from ground zero. Before I start my talk, I'd like Chris Showalter to come up here with me. Chris was with me. This isn't going to be easy, so please bear with me. On the afternoon of September 11, 2001, after speaking with Captain Lou Farmer of the Harrisonburg Police Department, Chris Showalter of the Harrisonburg Police Department K-9 unit approached me and asked me if there was anything we could do to help with the World Trade Center disaster. So I called my brother Tom, who's a 37-year veteran of NYPD, and asked him if he knew of any way we could help. Tom put me in touch with Sergeant Murray of the NYPD Harbor Unit. He was at the command post at Ground Zero. Sergeant Murray said they'd be happy for any help that we could give them. So we packed up bags and arrived soon later. As a retired New York City police officer, I myself have seen a lot of death and destruction in my years as a street cop. But however, I was not prepared for what I was about to see. It was like walking on an open grave for many days. I never cried and hugged so many men. Let's see, I'm sorry. I never cried and hugged so many men in my life as I did that hard day of September 11th. Officer Showalter and his dog Wilco, who was a cadaver dog, were assisted by Deputy Harry Suter of the Harrisonburg Police Department. Of the Sheriff's Department of Rockingham County. Through the coming weeks, we spent 14 to 16 hours a day at the site, assisting the policemen and the firemen. Chris, Harry, and Wilco found several bodies and body parts. My job was basically going around trying to give comfort to the police and the firefighters, and also helping with the digging and removal of the dead. On one occasion, I saw a retired firefighter, about my age, sitting on an empty bucket. I asked him if he was okay. With tears in his eyes, he looked at me and pointed to the rubble. Said, "My son is in there." Excuse me. What do you do and say? I put my arm around him, and we both prayed and cried together. After seeing so many pictures on TV, it didn't have quite the impact as it is working at the site. There were at least 60 refrigerated trucks lined up to put in the bodies of the dead. But I don't believe they used many, if any, at all. At night, with bright floodlights, it was like looking at a movie set. It just didn't look real. During the day, you could see the twisted metal, that girders that had been all twisted up from the intense heat, and they looked like they had dripped like candle wax. Most times you wore a mask, which was given to us to protect us from the smoke and the chemicals, the plastic and the cement dust. But it was hard to talk to people while wearing it. So I didn't wear mine very much. The cement turned back into a powder, and the rubble was about 12 stories high. It was hard to believe that there were so many people buried within it. I met two Oklahoma chaplains who told me that the Oklahoma bombing was a drop in the bucket compared to what they were looking at right now. Over the week, I heard many horrifying stories. I'm sorry, I just got this all screwed up. On the fourth day, I just about had it. I asked God to give me the strength to get through the week. A few minutes later, a chaplain walked up to me, and he was an answer to my prayer. He wanted to know if I would spend the rest of the day working in one of the two makeshift morgues. And I know it sounds strange, but I said yes. Because I thought it would give me a break from dealing with all the sad stories and the grief. It wasn't so. My job was to pray over the dead, the bodies, none of them whole, and any body parts that they brought in. Most were beyond recognition. It wasn't much different than being out on a site. The real hard part was when a policeman and a fireman would bring in one of their own. It was tough enough looking at the face it filled with pain and anger and questions and asking me why. Although I had no answers, I shared their grief with their pain, and we prayed together. The next day I was back on the site. There were parents, families, coming from all over. They're coming in to have their mouths swabbed to get the DNA. Husbands and wives, boyfriends and girlfriends. We're bringing in toothbrushes and combs to have the DNA taken so they can see if they can match anyone that might be found. Late at night, when we were leaving ground zero, for about 10 blocks north, people were lining the streets on both sides. They were cheering and waving American flags and giving us food and drink. and thanking us for being there. As tired and drained as you were, you felt like turning around and going right back down to the site. Also at night, going past the firehouses and the police stations, with all the flowers, candles, and pictures of the fallen heroes covering the sidewalks. We wondered how the rest of these brave men and women who had survived could still do their job with all their losses. One night about 2 a.m., we had just gotten back to the hotel where we were staying, and Chris told me that the doorman wanted to speak with me. So I went back down to the lobby to speak with him. He told me, he asked me if I would put up a picture of his brother at Ground Zero. He said that his brother had been working on one of the towers, and I told him it would be an honor. Then he handed me the picture of his brother with his name and the name of the company where he worked, and my heart sank. Because I realized it was the 82nd floor of the second tower, the second plane. I didn't have the heart to tell him that I thought his brother probably was vaporized when a plane came crashing through the wall and exploded in a fire hole in excess of 3,000 degrees. The next morning I took the picture with me and I proudly hung it up at Ground Zero. During the week I spoke with many veterans from the Second World War, Korea, and Vietnam, all who have come as volunteers. They all said the same thing. They have never seen such devastation in one place. I was asked where God was in all this. My only answer was that I knew He was there, because thousands of people got out before the buildings fell. When they did fall, they come straight down instead of falling from one side to another, which would have killed thousands more. I don't know why some lived and some died. That's something we'll never know in this lifetime. I talked with people who said they never prayed before, but now they admitted they were on their knees, asking God's help and forgiveness. One thing I did notice, there was no race, no color, no religion, just one large group of people working as a unit, trying to save lives, God's people. One day while standing in front of this unbelievable disaster, trying to make sense out of the whole thing of what happened, I asked God, what did this mean? And suddenly out of the smoking ashes flew a monarch butterfly. It flew up into the sky. In all my years as a cop in New York, I never saw a monarch butterfly in Manhattan. Again, this filled my eyes with tears. A butterfly is supposed to represent life. However, it raised another question. Did this mean that the people who had just lost theirs were beginning another life? Or did it mean that a new life for the people who survived? As a young boy, my dad always told me, never lose your faith. All my life, I thought he meant in my church and my religion. But now I believe he meant in my faith in God. My mom always said, never go to bed angry or leave the house without telling the ones you love that you love them. Looking back, I wonder how many people left their home on September 11, 2001, and were angry or in a hurry, or late for work, and didn't have the chance to tell all the ones that they loved them. And that I will never be able to do so. Sometimes, some things in my life changed that way. Things that were important to me in the world were important. And other things I took for granted, much more important. Working as a cop in New York City always made me feel proud. But being there this time made me feel like a small grain of sand on a big large beach, so insignificant. Yet men were coming up to me and hugging me, and thanking me for being there and asking me to give them communion, which I was proud to do. Now I ask you, when you go home tonight, please pray for, and never forget all those people in Pennsylvania, D.C., New York, and all our military who have lost their lives, and for their families, and for those who are sick and still dying from 9/11. They're the true heroes, not us. Thank you very much. God bless you.